Welcome to the latest episode of Breakfast with Bacon. I'm Doug Bacon, Managing Director of Throwing Words and your host for this podcast. And today, with my co-host Tyann Osborne, we've got a great guest that really excited to hear from her. And Ty, you want to introduce who we've got and kick us off?
I do, Doug. Thank you so much. So I'm super excited, everyone, to welcome my longtime friend, Yolanda Owens. Welcome, Yolanda.
Thank you. Looking forward to this time with y'all.
Oh, me too. We have been dying to get you on the podcast for quite some time. And Yolanda, you and I have known each other for a long time, obviously, since we were both 12. We first met when we worked together at Dell. And like we were talking about earlier, when you came in to interview and had to interview with 10,000 people that day, you and I met and have stayed friends ever since. And so just wanted to give everyone a sense of your top 5 themes for today, and we're dealing with connectedness, relator, maximizer, positivity, and belief, with a heavy dose of responsibility, arranger, futuristic, learner, and self-assurance thrown in to round out the top 10. And so, which is a powerhouse set of themes. Doug's going to take us through a little bit more about what that means, but we really thought that you had a lot to add to the podcast because our theme for this year has been about different moments of transition and how to really take those into moments of transformation, put all those together into real moments of transformation. And you certainly have had a number of those over the past year. So those are the themes we wanted to explore today.
All right.
Doug, you want to jump in with a question?
Yeah, of course. Love the questions. Yes. So Yolanda, I know that one of the things that we've talked about, so you've got your strengths are great, of course, awesome. And there are a few combinations that I thought would be pretty interesting to kind of think about. So one is, leading with connectedness, right? So everything happens for a reason. There's a slender thread kind of that flows throughout. You pay attention to the periphery, but you've got connectedness plus belief, so that those core really guided by what you hold most true. And when you're able to act on those things, becomes even more motivating to see them through to completion. But also responsibility, so that commitment, right? That your word is your bond. And the three of those kind of at their best, just you can be this just force for transformation, for really kind of putting into action what you know to be true, and can be really kind of, while they're executing in relationship building, really become very influential. I mean, others can really get drawn into kind of what you believe and what you're doing. And it also can be something that when they get into overdrive can just be overwhelming, just burn out, to just kind of get the worst of all these things coming together. Can you talk a little bit about kind of where you kind of seeing yourself at your best, and and how you keep it from moving into that overdrive?
Oh gosh, yeah. So Doug, thank you so much for the time and just for the opportunity to talk about, strengths. I would tell you that I think my connectivity and my belief is very, very deeply rooted in who I am. And from a faith-based perspective, I am able to boldly proclaim that I'm a Christian. And so because I say that's who I am, I'm going to live by the laws of the Holy Word. And so not saying that I'm perfect, but I'm striving. And I think that I believe that God is bigger than, all of us. And I think that God created the universe. And I say, really, with my beliefs, knowing that there is something bigger than me. And then with the whole universe, there is a responsibility that we have to, number one, live in alignment and in accordance of what we say we believe. One of the things that I've been trying to focus on is making sure my actions match my message, and working a lot, with other people. I'll say, you know what, we're going to have a tough conversation, but I want to tell you where it's coming from. And so I'm readily talking about, the groundedness in what I'm going to say to them and the place that it's coming from. And I think that's really helped people see me and my work as an HR business partner more as a relational resource versus a, kind of a execution resource. So we can talk about things and they know what my beliefs, and I say, these are my beliefs. So you invoke your beliefs, and giving people permission and space to do that, I think really does allow me to operate in my true self without getting too burnt out in what they need, because they know what they need, and I can't give them what they need because based on what I am and who I am. I'm trying to let them tap into, what do you believe? Why is that important? And therefore they'll come to some of their own solutions. So
Yolanda, just to piggyback on that. So one of the threads of conversation you and I've had for years has been companies, and some companies have a stronger sense of who they are and what they believe than others. And so how do you reconcile that when you have this strong set of beliefs, you know where you're going, and you might join a company or you're in a work group that maybe it doesn't seem as strong for them, or maybe you're working with a manager who maybe it's just not as strong for them, or they haven't spent that time and reflection and tapped into that. Maybe they lead with a different set of themes that, maybe they're just very execution focused, for example. So how do you kind of reconcile those things?
So I have worked for a lot of great companies, and I work for a great company now. And I believe that most companies are conscious of the need for transformation in all things. How you manage, how you support your employees, how you think globally. And with that pleases me. There are times when I haven't worked at a company where it's like just contrary to my values, but when I have been in situations that are contrary to the things that make me who I am, I've had to raise that as a voice of concern. And I've been given space to do that. Over the last, 3 to 4 years have been definitely more opportunities for that than in my early career. A lot of that has to be because I maybe not been so confident, or I wasn't self-assured enough to own that. Whereas, over life, changes happen, things happen, and you decide what is going to be non-negotiable. And I think, once I figured that out for myself, these are the things I believe in, and this is how I'm going to operate. It brings consistency to the table. I've seen some really good leaders. I'll call one out. My leader at Indeed, Chris Himes, just was very committed and is still real committed with the organization on all things social change. He has a long history. And when I talked to him, I could see the empathy that he had and the desire to understand. And so that to me goes a long way. And so I think, we have to meet people where they are and bring them along with us.
I like that answer. Would you go back to young Yolanda, who's just starting out in the professional workplace? And obviously we didn't have the strengths language back then. Would you give her any advice in terms of leaning into her voice? Or do you think she was doing the right thing at that time?
Well, because everything is connected, I was doing what was to be done at the time. Now, did it net me the results that I wanted? Maybe not, but I also have grown in my belief that I don't always get what I want. I believe that I'm going to get what is prepared for me. So therefore, I know that's like all big and theological, but no, seriously, there are some things that I would do. I cared way too much. And I actually had a leader tell me that basically I needed to increase my don't give up factor, fill in the blank. Yeah. But I care because I was trying to get approval, and I was trying to get, recognition, and I was trying to grow my career. And I was watching how other people were doing it, but that didn't work for me. And so I would tell my younger self, stay on the course, be patient from a time perspective, but you have to know when it's time. So
Mm.
listen to the voices and the experiences that say, you know what, now might be time. But you're not going to force people to do anything. I have learned that. And so I think I would say to younger self, you cannot push them into a decision. When they decide, that's when it's going to happen. All you have to do is be ready for the opportunity when it is
Mhm.
made available to you.
Mhm. I can see that. And I can see too, just because I know you and the organizations you're involved in outside of work, um, maybe how those things also help provide that additional um, connectivity, community, opportunity for impact that, somebody young in their career might be looking for fulfillment 100% at work in, and then kind of realizing that's, unlikely to be found 100% in any one place. And so kind of building a multifaceted life.
Yeah, I definitely believe that life is not work. Work enables life.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I think my community of faith
Mhm.
is huge for
Mhm.
me. My affiliation with my Links Incorporated chapter, the Lone Star Texas chapter of Links Incorporated,
Mhm.
totally focused on service.
Mhm.
Is huge for me. Putting my children in organizations that allow them to have exposure and experiences, and to see the world bigger than where we live, I think is really important. And so over the years, I've kind of watched the evolution of myself and lean into those other resources, and it's just not work related.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So Yolanda, you mentioned kind of growing from your experiences and touched on we talk about strengths and we, in our work, so we talk about how our strengths show up in work. But the reality is our strengths show up everywhere we go. It's who we are every day. And so you learn from your experiences at work, but you also learn from your experiences in life. And I know that over the last 5 or so years, you've experienced a lot, both personally and professionally, that has kind of equipped you for this moment, if you will. Can you say a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so I'll say a very defining moment was 7 years ago on July the 3rd when my mother transitioned. And her passing was the most painful experience I've had, but it also gave me a ton of strength because watching my mother go through declining health through congestive heart failure, still trying to take care of everyone, being responsible for everyone else and not prioritizing herself really taught me a lot. And I think my sisters have also leaned into this as well. It's, what she did not do that we should do is stop and give ourselves permission to take care of self. And so that has been really big. And so I think that's drawn me even more into my connectedness center. Like I engage with people and resources that are connected with the things that I believe. And, I think there's a higher level of responsibility that I have because I know that the person that I'm paying homage to is, my dear mother. And so I could hear her in my mind saying, we don't do that, like there's expectations and standards. And it makes it easier for me to just settle in. And I'm not trying to make myself be something that I'm not. And so that's really helpful. But that's been a big one. And then, we've had my son went to the Marines. So first kid out of the house, not a big deal. Well, kind of small, it's a big deal, but he was close. My daughter, she was our last little birdie to fly out of the nest. And that has been very, very impactful. My husband and I are having to get to know each other again. We got to get reconnected, but which we're doing good, trying to figure out who are we as adults without these children driving every conversation in. So that's been fun, but challenging at times. And then we got hit with COVID. And then in the middle of COVID, we have the George Floyd, along with all of the other Black men that were getting shot down. And let me tell you, as a mother of a Black man, I was stressed and still am like, God, please don't get stopped. Not do I believe both the police are bad. It's just, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And so, all of these worries and anxiety, but I had to like back up and really lean into my belief system and just really trust that, I say that there's a greater power in the universe and it was going to take care of all things. So it's been really a year of transition, but I also feel like I'm transforming. And that transformative experience is, it's nice. I'm watching TV and writing down little notes of places I want to go when I see them on, TV. So I'm kind of building my wish list. So it's kind of fun to kind of just get to know your adult self again.
Yeah,
Love
and
that.
interesting, as you talk about you kind of the different transitions and the transformational opportunity, and how kind of the way you've responded to those opportunities really is to lean into who you are at your best, to really lean into those strengths, to that paying it, the connectedness, the belief, just those those strengths, and kind of I'm reminded of one of the things that we talk about in the work, which is two people can deliver the same outcome, but the way they're going to do it is through their strengths, and so it may look different. And so hearing how I just love that picture of you leaning, becoming more of who you are as you go, as you have these different experiences, and how that has kind of informed but shaped your belief and kind of your approach to these past few years.
While I didn't want to be the representative Black woman in the room, I was a lot. And it gave me a voice of things that I normally wouldn't talk about. I have friends that are just like offended if people ask them anything. I'm like, ask me, I'm going to tell you, but then stop asking me because you need to go read this book I assigned you. So I do believe that, you get a voice in strange places, and then it just allows you to offer the outcome related conversation that is going to be positive. And so I really have leaned into that. Just even the fact that someone, Ty and I were having just a simple conversation one day that turned into something. It really made me know that words matter. And so I'm trying to make sure I'm responsible with the words that I use while I'm staying strong, and, strong in the sense of honest and truthful and forthright and vision focused, and just enjoying life. So I think I'm in a really nice spot right now. It's kind of nice.
I like that. And Doug, I think what you said, that's so interesting, kind of leaning more and more into who you already are, and especially in these points of transition, and using that into transformation. Because, Yolanda, it's interesting sometimes, especially when children leave the house or some of these things happen, sometimes couples fall apart. Sometimes people fall apart when your identity is so wrapped up in, I'm so-and-so's mom. That's all I am. I put that in air quotes, when people don't have a sense of who they are as individuals, and it can be really disconcerting for people. And so that's has always been, to me, so admirable about you, is you've always seemed so strong in who you are as an individual. And that's so attractive. And what I tell my leaders that I coach, especially who have belief, is that it's so attractive to others. And especially when you're the leader with belief, it's so attractive to your followers, because other people really understand who you are and what you stand for. And it can be incredibly attractive, because not everybody has that.
I thank you for that. And I will say, on the belief side, again, conversations that you're not supposed to have is kind of the belief thing, like, well, we really should. But I will say, I've grown to know how to balance that, right? You because and I'll say, this is what I think I've been very clear about that. Like, this is what I believe.
Mhm.
And I'm going to encourage you to choose what you believe. And we don't have to believe the same thing. And I'm not going to try to change your mind. That to me is like the wrong direction and the wrong intention. Everyone is, it is what it is. So.
And I love that about belief, because that's a great example of kind of belief at its best, which is we don't have to believe in the same thing. But we need to understand and be clear about what we do believe, and so kind of, we talked before we started recording about, understanding your why, and how in companies you see even the most well-intended leaders kind of putting things out there, aspirational goals for us. But when it's the executing of those plans falls to others, how important it is for those who are doing that implementation to understand for their own reasons for making that a reality, versus not just going off of what that leader believes, but helping them to understand, what is it that I believe, and how as an HR business partner, you are in a unique position to really help people get it and to connect with what it is that they believe, but not have the burden, not feeling a burden that you need to convince them to believe what you believe. But you do know that they need to understand what it is they believe, and how you can really help them. The reason that you're there, connectedness, is so that you can help them better understand what it is they believe, particularly in just kind of the times of the past year and a half.
Yeah, that's a good point, Doug. And I think also one step further on what you believe. How does your belief, at the end of the day, we got to deliver, right? And so how do you believe how do you reconcile that beliefs don't actually necessarily mean that you're going to get what you want? And that is often the conversation. I know you would do it a different way. I know you think about this differently, but how do we find the balance? And I'm not asking you to reduce who you are, but I'm trying to make sure that organizationally we can align and make things happen. So while it is strong to be determined and just really rooted in who you are and what you believe, you also have to have a little bit of pliability in order to make sure that you can work in the environment that you're in. And so I don't forget that every now and then when I get really I believe this, okay, good. But now how do we make this work organizationally? And that to me is a balance of the activator, transformative, maximizer. You want it to, I think the believer shows up in the maximizer, like, this is the way to do it. Well, not really. The maximizer says we're just going to do it to our best. And how do we make sure we give them our best at the end of the day? So I think there's a lot of different experiences that end up in the, I believe, yeah, you do believe, but we also know that we are all here for a corporate mission in the workplace. So we need to figure out how to work that.
Yeah. And as we start to, I know we're running up against our time on the podcast, and Ty, would love to tee you up to kind of just share what you're taking away from this as well. But one of the things that I'm just struck by from our conversation is just this idea that we become more of who we are, not becoming someone that we're not. And how you're just a great, the experience that you've shared today, Yolanda, is just a great example of that you have become more of who you are, whether, you described it as kind of being a full adult, right? Or you talked, and before we were recording, you talked about kind of the transformation from being the queen of everything to being the queen of my things. Just the kind of the clarity and the confidence that comes with that. So that's one of the big things I'm taking away from our conversation, is just that reminder that the path forward is to become more of who we are, not to try to become somebody we're not.
Yeah, absolutely. So I figure there's only one path that I can take, and that's my path, and it could be straight or all over the place. And I kind of like the all over the place.
Hmm. Of
But
course,
it's still
connectedness.
it's still grounded in all things me, though.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ty, what are you taking away from our conversation with y'all?
No, that's so well said, Doug. I'm totally with you on that. And I would just add, I love that part, Yolanda, about when having those conversations with people, also being able to say, and by the way, this is what I believe, not necessarily, I'm not being the spokesperson for all people in this certain group. I'm just telling you what I believe, and let's have a conversation about that. I'm trying to meet you where you are. I can't affect all change today. Let's help move the conversation forward. Let's have a productive conversation, all in the guise of we are at a company, we are here for a certain mission. Like these things, there's a lot of Venn in this diagram. They're not mutually exclusive. How can we accomplish these goals together? That's what I heard you saying. So I love hearing that.
Better together.
We're better together.
Better together. And with that, we will bring this episode to a close. Yolanda, thank you very much for the time and for the conversation and sharing your wisdom and perspective. And Ty, it's always great to be with you on the podcast, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next time.
All right. Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.